Yes, good morning. It is that time of the week again, fitness fragrance review time. And what are we looking at today? We're looking at this one by the Perfume People Limited, the Quirky line, and it's called Icky Dates. Sounds a little bit familiar. It sounds a little bit like Sticky Dates from Lush. But if you haven't seen these before, fitness fragrance review, essentially I do a morning workout. So I go for a run, walk to the gym, do a gym workout, walk back, all while wearing a fragrance, and it's this one today. And we're going to rank it on 5 categories. So it's price slash value for money, its versatility, so how much you can use it in different situations. We'll look at its projections, how much I notice during my run. We'll do a room spray test, see how much it fills up the room. We'll also look at its compliment factor and its longevity. So once I've had a shower, can I still smell the fragrance a few hours after I applied it? So yeah, what I'm going to quickly do is talk about this fragrance and then just go through the note breakdown. It's not a huge one for this one today, but I'll just compare it to, of course, Sticky Dates by Lush. A little bit of info on this fragrance essentially. Icky Dates actually came out before Sticky Dates. Now Sticky Dates has been in Lush's collection for a long time, but it was only about a couple of years ago they actually released it as a body spray, and it flew off the shelf. It was so popular, but all you could really get before it was brands that were trying to sort of replicate that smell, and one of them here was Icky Dates. And this brand, I did a little bit of research on them actually, the Perfume People. They do some natural smells. They use natural oils, high quality oils, and yeah, a lot of people were looking at this one because they loved the smell of Sticky Dates, and eventually by demand it transferred from being like body butters and creams to a body spray. And yeah, as I said, it's been around ever since. Lush did have it as a limited edition one. It's now still there just in its own right. But yeah, the Perfume People, they've done loads of these. They also do it in like car fragrances. They do them in, yeah, room sprays. So they've done a lot of shaving creams, I think. So they've really made this Icky Dates line one of their own as well. But there are some slight differences. So I'm just going to put this one on here as well. So spray this. So that's Sticky Dates. I'm going to spray Icky Dates there. Yeah, so what you get from this is there's just definite differences. You definitely get the date smell in both of them, but Sticky Dates, the one by Lush, is a lot more on that caramel side. And then Icky Dates is a little bit lighter, a bit sweeter, a little bit fresher, I would say. But it's coming from this creamy floral component, which we'll talk about now in the note breakdown. Phone at the ready. Let's look at what is in Icky Dates, which I guess you can call it a clone of Sticky Dates. But the top notes in this are dates, the star note, rich, sweet, fruity, almost caramel-like, common gourmand ingredient. Yeah, look, you definitely pick up the caramel here, but it's not as dark. It's not a really dark caramel. It smells more like actual dates. If you've ever eaten dates, you'll know what I mean. They're not really like caramel sweetness, but they're kind of sugary, but not really dark, sort of burnt sugar smell. Whereas I think Sticky Dates got a bit of a burnt sugar smell. If we look at the heart, vanilla, creamy, sugary, smooth, again, that little bit more of a sugar smell, which I'm picking up from this. But it's the gardenia for me that really stands out in this fragrance. Floral creaminess that rounds out the sweetness as a milky floral depth. Now, don't get me wrong, they're both unisex fragrances, but this one definitely leans a little bit more feminine than the original Sticky Dates, which I think leans a little bit more masculine with that sort of darker caramel. This is much lighter, a little bit musky, as I said. It's almost like a musky sugar smell. And then we go into the base, resins, warm, slightly balsamic, adds longevity and depth. Again, really complements the smell of the dates. And then sandalwood, smooth, woody, soft creaminess to anchor the sweetness. Again, this isn't overpowering sweetness. By no, it is sweet. It's definitely sweet and sugary, but it has got that clean vibe in it in the background, which definitely lightens it up. And I think that sandalwood just rounds it all off and prevents it from being too harsh around the edges. It's an extremely oily juice as well, really oily in this. So if you do get this one, just be very careful spraying it on clothing. I don't mind this around top because I ran into a lamppost and ripped it the other week. So yeah, that was a little bit silly, wasn't it? But what I'm going to do on my run, I'm going to do the first 2 categories. We're going to look at the price slash value for money for this one. We'll talk about it as the fragrance, not the car fragrances and the beard oils, but I'll show you that on the screenshot in the next bit as well anyway. But yeah, we'll also look at versatility as well. So time to stop putting off, do my stretching, and I'll see you out there. We are off. Another run begins and another fitness fragrance review begins. So, price slash value for money for Icky Dates. So the 100ml Eau de Parfum is just under £30, so it's £28.90. Now, do I think that's good value for money for this fragrance? Well, I think there's 2 ways to look at this. I do want to kind of take back what I said earlier. I said this was a clone, or you could almost call it a clone of Sticky Dates. But actually, I need to take that back because essentially this one came out before the fragrance by Lush, the body spray, the Sticky Dates body spray. And And okay, what they essentially did is they tried to replicate the smell of the body butters and the creams. But actually as a fragrance, this came out first. And I would have said at the time, £28.90 for a fragrance trying to replicate the smell of one of my favourite scents, you know, isn't actually a fragrance. It's amazing value for money. You know, they use really natural oils, all very, very high quality. And obviously then when Sticky Days came out, Lush, to be fair to them, were charging £25 originally. It's gone up just through inflation to about £28. So it's a comparable price to Icky Days. And for that reason, it's almost made this one a little bit redundant. And when I used to think it was great value for money because it was replicating the smell of something I really liked, that I couldn't buy as a fragrance, now I can get that actual one as a fragrance, and I have to say I think Sticky Days by Lush is nicer. It's made this one feel a little bit redundant and maybe not as good value for money. It almost needs a rebrand, this one. As I said, there are slight differences with the smell. This one's definitely got more of a floral creamy component to it. And I think if it was almost called something along the lines of, I don't know, sugary syrup or something a little bit different, you know, it would almost go up in my estimation again, because it's now trying to replicate the smell of something else. And now that's come out, it doesn't smell quite the same. It's lost a bit of its unique selling point. I think this one is good enough now just to stand its own right. Call it something else. And, you know, people can then go, oh, it's got nuances of Sticky Dates. You know, but now being called Icky Dates, people are going to go, oh, it's a clone fragrance that's actually a little bit more expensive than the actual thing it's trying to sort of copy. And that means it's got to go down a little bit in price for money, not through its own fault, but through the changes in the industry where Lush have decided, yeah, we need to release Sticky Dates as an actual fragrance, as a body spray, rather than just as shower gels. So I'm going to give price value for money a 7.5 because I think in its defence, it still smells a very high quality fragrance. And you know, they use natural oils, they make a big point of that, very good concentrate perfumes. So I really like that in its sense. But of course the thing it's replicating now, if you've got a clone, I know it's not a clone as I was saying a minute ago, but if you've got a fragrance trying to copy another one and you're charging more for it, and it doesn't smell quite the same as it now because it came out first, unfortunately that means it's got to go down a bit. So it would have been probably a 9 or a 10 originally. It's now 7.5, but it's still a very good fragrance. I hope that makes sense. That was quite a long-winded explanation, but yeah, I just think it needs a rebrand to get itself back up to the top. But yeah, we'll go on to versatility next. So versatility for Icky Dates. How much can you dress this one up, dress this one down? Different ages, different occasions, different seasons, all those things. Well, I think this is actually where it's going to do quite well today, and I say this for a couple of reasons. Look, Sticky Dates is a unisex fragrance. I did touch on it earlier though. I think it needs a little bit more masculine, because when you think of the vibe of it, it's that sort of benzoyl resinoid, which again is in men's and women's fragrances, but that sort of caramel, dark caramel vanillic smell definitely feels like a male date night type scent. You know, when you think of Ferragamo, Womo, all those sort of darker gourmands, you know, even like Tom Ford Noir Extreme, it has that sort of vibe. This one though is a lighter interpretation, and it's certainly not as heavy, it's not as strong a fragrance either, and I think that makes it more wearable. That gardenia, which we touched on, definitely brings this floral creaminess alongside obviously the safe notes like vanilla, like dates. It just makes it that little bit more feminine, a little bit more unisex, I would say, but also more wearable in the sort of warmer spring days rather than just those cool weather occasions. I think Sticky Dates is a lovely fragrance, but you know, you're not going to want to wear it on a high heat summer's day. Whereas this one, I'm not saying you'd wear it for the gym or anything like that, but you could certainly wear it more in an office. It's not quite as aggressive, you know, it's all toned down by that sandalwood, and I think that makes it more wearable on those slightly warmer days, and that gives it that little bit extra signature scent potential because you can use it in those great situations. Again, I think it's very much a sweet gourmand fragrance, so would I necessarily want to dress it up? No, not particularly. I think it's still more of a casual type scent that you're going to wear, you know, if you're meeting up with friends. But again, like I said, like a date night, you don't want to be too stressed, too nervous, but suit and tie, absolutely not. But, you know, if it's a smart casual job interview, people remember it, but do be aware if you overspray this, it's still quite heavy. But it's a mass-pleasing type scent. I think it will suit anyone, to be honest with you, late teens, up until your 50s. My dad still likes the original Sticky Date, and he's 60 this year, and I think this one's absolutely fine. I think for my mum, she'd probably prefer this one because of that extra floral component. So I actually think this is more versatile than Sticky Dates by Lush. So I can only really mark it down on the fact it's still not one that you'd really want to dress up or wear in the high heat summer. But again, other than that, it's not meant to be for that. It's not that sort of fragrance. So I can't be too critical, and I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 for that reason. Felt like I was quite harsh on the first round through no fault of its own, and I think versatility from the slight difference in smell actually works in its favour for this round, so 9 out of 10 for that one. Anyway, when we get back, we will talk about projection. How much am I noticing this fragrance during my run? Can't wait for a coffee. So workout done. As you can tell, it is very, very dark outside, so I think it's going to chuck it down. So much for it being a dry day today. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to test for projection. So I'm going to spray my room 5 times. Let's do 10. So what I'm doing there is essentially I'm testing to see how much the fragrance fills the room. So if a colleague came into the office when you're at work, or someone at home, or a friend walks into my bedroom, would they actually notice the fragrance? They go, oh, someone sprayed something nice in here. I'm also going to spray my arms. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is to test for longevity. So essentially in 3 hours time, it's just gone 10 past 9. When I leave the gym, obviously hopefully the showers are going to be working. They won't be. But I will test for it on the way back if not. So 3 hours time from now, after I've done my walk, my workout and everything, we'll see what we can detect. But yeah, let's head downstairs, have a cup of coffee. Can't wait. And we'll talk about how much I noticed the fragrance during my run. Honestly, best feeling in the world. I say in every video, but I do love a coffee after a run. So projection, how much did I notice Icky dates during my workout? Not at all. To be honest with you, not once. And I did stop, I went to the toilet, had to cross a few roads. It just wasn't there. And I wonder if that's, I mean, again, I've obviously worn this fragrance before from my own experience. It's never been a really, really strong projector, and I'm not expecting it to fill a room particularly. That being said, I don't think that's because of its lack of quality. I think it's going to do really well on longevity. Actually, when I've sprayed it obviously on my arms, the longevity test, you won't be able to see it on the camera, but you can really see that oil shining. So as I said earlier on, be a little bit careful spraying this on clothes. But I think they're high quality oils, they just maybe don't have that same kick, they're just not really strong. And that may be because the notes in this fragrance, again, as I said a little bit earlier, feel a little bit lighter, you know, light florals in it, a little bit more musky, clean, and it just smells quality, not synthetic, which can be harsh, but that can also sometimes help in terms of projection. Don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it'll be interesting to see how much this fills a room. So what I'm going to do, finish this coffee, head upstairs, and then we'll see if it maybe does better than I think. Just shut my door because my parents are around. They're probably wondering what I'm doing. No, they know I do all these videos. So, can I smell icky dates in my room? No. And to be honest, I've had no windows open. I've had nothing like that. Sprayed 10 times as you saw. It doesn't project. A little bit less than I expected. I don't see, when I first had this fragrance, so this is my brother's one. But when I had this one, I had the 100ml as well. I've had it twice, I believe. I remember thinking it was a little bit stronger than this. Now, of course, 10 sprays isn't massive, but I would have expected it to fill a room a little bit. You know, we're only talking 10 minutes that's gone by here. You know, even if it was just the faintest sort of hint, I would have been quite happy. Look, from my experience, I think if you've got it on clothing, a little bit more like fabric clothing, it will project a little bit. But obviously on today's scores, I've got to be honest and say it hasn't done anything. And I've got to give it a low score for that reason. So I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10. But at the end of the day, this is meant to be a winter fragrance. And this is meant to be a strong, nice, sweet, you know, inviting type fragrance. So you would want that little bit more projection. And I can only go on what I've said, found out so far today from my experience during my workout. So yeah, 2 out of 10. I think you're going to need to overspray to get a little bit more projection out of this. But you never know. As I said, longevity data may help that. It may help, you know, if someone gets a bit close to you in the day to get that notice, that compliment. But we're going to be talking about compliments next anyway. So yeah, what I'm going to do, get myself ready, get out walking, and yeah, I'll talk about compliments. Any experience I've had with this, and yeah, do I think this is a compliment getting sent? It's a compliment factor. Do I think Icky Date is a compliment getting sent? Yes, I do. Absolutely. I mean, that's no real surprise, is it really? When you're talking about notes of dates, vanilla, you know, that nice sugary sweetness, that's very common in a lot of fragrances, in a lot of male and female fragrances. And I think when you're looking at the way perfumery is going, obviously compliments are probably the main reason people buy sprays. And they are going in that gourmand direction, probably it's almost too gourmand in some cases where you don't really want to smell of food. And this one doesn't. This one's, like I said, that nice floral component in it. It's not a skanky floral either. It's quite a nice wearable one. I think it's going to be very approachable. It's kind of more of a cozy type scent. It's not really dress up statement sort of compliments for me. This is one where if you sprayed it on a hoodie and someone was, you know, say you were sitting with your partner watching a film, or just yourself sitting by the fireplace on a cold day, I think that's going to be where it's really nice and really pleasant. And it's going to leave a good impression in that sense. I think the only reason it's not going to really get those big compliments is just, as we were just saying earlier, that projection. It's going to be one where someone's going to want to get closer to you, but if you're going to wear it to go out for like a night out or so with friends, it may not just pack that punch. So I think this one's going to be more of a situation specific one for compliments. Again, sitting at home, maybe in the office where you don't want it to be too strong, but someone's maybe sitting next to you by their desk and you're working together on a project. I think that's going to do well, and I think people are going to say really, really positive things about you. I don't think anyone's going to, even if they don't mention it, they're not going to think this is horrible and want to move away from you. The notes in this fragrance are very easy, very approachable, and that sandalwood does tie it off and make it a nice, well-rounded fragrance. I said it's just that performance. So I think I'm probably going to say for this one, we'll go an 8 out of 10. Now, again, on scent, I'd say 9.5. I do think as well, though, on top of the fact it doesn't really project, it's not really a gym type fragrance. So I'm not expecting any compliments or anything at the gym today with this one. So maybe it can't be used as much, in other situations like a Dior Sauvage, which I think is obviously an ultimate compliment getting fragrance. So it's very much for those sort of cozy moments, those more relaxing, calming moments. And I think it will do really well in those situations. For situation specific, just wish it had that little bit more projection, but 8 out of 10, still not a bad score, is it? Of course, if we do get any at the gym, we'll bump up to a 10. Workout done, no compliments, but then would you compliment anyone with hair this bad today? To be honest with you, I didn't notice the fragrance at all. But obviously when I'm actually deliberately trying to smell it on my wrist, I can smell it absolutely fine. When it goes back to what I said, I think there's quality oils in this. I think the longevity is going to be good, but unfortunately the showers are not working, so it looks like it's going to be a shower at home a little bit later on. We'll obviously talk about longevity on my way back, so yeah, let's get myself all sort of wrapped up again, all warm, and yeah, we'll talk about that next. Apparently the shower's working, so I'm going to try it out. Right, so it's 12:05. They were the dinkiest showers ever. They were absolutely tiny. You can basically turn around and you bash your funny bone. But anyway, I've had a shower. That's the main thing. I can give a proper score now on longevity. So it's been about 3 hours since I applied the fragrance. How much can I smell it? Yeah, really well. I did think this was going to do well. Just again, the oils feel really high quality in this. It's probably about 80% as strong as when I left. I'd probably say, because I've obviously done a few reviews on Lush faces and they don't always last that well after a shower. This one has. This one's done really well and probably is better than the actual original Sticky Days for longevity. And this is going to get you through the day in terms of lasting on your skin for yourself. This is going to get you through the day. That sort of day where it's like rainy, it's horrible. I think this is perfect. It's almost like, again, sometimes I say if they're too strong in protection, you almost want to wash them off because they're so aggressive. This isn't one of those. This is one that you'll quite enjoy throughout the whole day through the lifespan of the fragrance. And I wouldn't be surprised, if you're not getting too warm, if you'd almost smell it, when you go to bed or first thing in the morning, because it's got that longevity about it. And I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 for that reason. Really nice longevity, really nice fragrance. It's certainly gone less than it. It certainly doesn't smell like Sticky Dates now. It feels like those florals are kicking in a lot more. And this sugary thing actually smells, as I was saying a little bit earlier on, like dates. If you actually know the real smell of dates as an actual food item, it's starting to smell a lot more like that, and it is very, very pleasant. So I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 for that reason. Again, if Sticky Dates didn't exist, this would still be a brilliant fragrance in its own right. And for that sort of price range, £30, I think this stands up in longevity with some of the top ones in that range, like a Bentley for Men Intense. So yeah, 10 out of 10. What we'll do, we'll head back, we'll count up all the scores, and I'll give my overall thoughts. We are back. We are finally back, and the sun has come out now for a little bit anyway. So, how many steps have I done today? It's just nearly 1:30. 40,438 steps, all while wearing this one by the Perfume People Limited Icky Dates, the sort of clone fragrance of Lush. So what was the overall score that this one got? What did Icky Dates get overall? Starting to find that a tongue twister. 36.5 out of 50. So it's done pretty well. Obviously, what it really got marked down on today was that projection. It only got a 2 out of 10 on that round. And to be fair, look, it's not a strong projector, but it made up for it a little bit in its longevity as well. I think the main takeaway from this, though, for me, is the fact that this came out obviously before Sticky Dates, so it's not really a clone as we were touching on earlier. But the fact now Sticky Dates is a fragrance and Lush have released it as a fragrance, I just think this needs rebranding. It's not that similar. Again, they were trying to replicate a smell that wasn't really one that existed as a perfume, and I think this is actually okay in its own right. It's got that slight little bit more floral component to it, and I don't think it's, if I had to sort of say similarity in percentage, it's probably about 70% the same, maybe 75% the same. But you don't have to be a fragrance expert to detect the differences here. You will detect the differences just as a random person. I'm pretty certain if you sprayed both on your arm, you would notice a change. And I think for that reason, this one almost, the fact it's more expensive than Sticky Dates as well, it just means that it needs something else. You know, if it was £20 cheaper, I'd probably go, oh yeah, that'll do. I can top up Sticky Dates with this one in my bag at lunchtime. Sticky Dates is a strong fragrance in its own right, and it does smell a little bit darker, a bit more caramel than this one. So I think if you're buying this, you're kind of ripping yourself off, and you're not actually getting the smell that you really want overall. So my opinion would be, if you like Sticky Dates, just keep getting Sticky Dates. Unless Lush went completely up on the price, which I don't think they're going to do, I think that's your way forward. I think if this was called like date syrup or sugar date syrup, it's just something to kind of mention the fact it's more sugary, more datey, I think this one would do better. I really do, because it's a great fragrance, and this company, I do want to recommend them as well, the Perfume People Limited, because they do plenty of sort of different lines, and I think they replicate a few other Lush scents as well. But yeah, this one now just needs a rebrand. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not redundant in my opinion. It's redundant if you're comparing it to Sticky Dates, but if you have it as its own fragrance with a different name, different branding, I think it can work really well. And I have to say, I'm going to spray a little bit now. They've done really well with this fragrance in its own right. I don't think there's anything that actually smells exactly like this as well. So to try and do this again without anything to go by, just on the fact that they obviously like the Lush smell from Sticky or of Sticky Date, they did a pretty decent job. As I said, they've done well there, and I'm very glad. I might get it again myself, but I do think that extra price does rip it off. But definitely get it. Like I said, you saw the picture earlier. They do them in different things, so fragrance, carved sprays, all sorts of things, beard oil things, I believe, as well. Maybe that's the best way to go for this. But yeah, rebranding, I think this is still a great scent. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Gonna go nick a couple more of my brother's scents before he gets back from work, because I want to do a few Lush body spray reviews. So yeah, hopefully I'll catch you for them. You'll see them soon.